Good afternoon, everybody. It's really, really wonderful to be able to welcome you all here this afternoon. They'll be pleased to know that Ellie all have stopped arranging everything, doing everything. They've finally calmed down into their roles as groom today. So I think they're ready to begin, and therefore we can begin as well. And I know that many of you have seen the article in the Jewish Chronicle, and it might be that the newspaper have tried to make today about making history, about making a public statement of something, but actually I'm here, and I know that you're all here because Paul and Ellie love each other very much, and because we love them, and that we are allowing ourselves the opportunity to be able to show them the celebrations, the joy, the love that we want to share with them and be part of their lives with them. So just before we invite them in, Cantor Zoe is going to teach us a little bit of a melody that we're going to need further on in the service. One of the things that was important to Paul and Ellie when they were putting the service together for today was that it should feel participatory, and that it should really be an opportunity not to watch a wedding, but rather to feel involved in a wedding. So the melody that they have chosen for their Sheva Brachot, the blessings that come at the end of the ceremony, is part of their way of being able to show that for you.
So the only word you're going to need is the word Amen. And it's going to repeat itself a couple of times. It's going to go just like this. Amen, 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 amen. So try it with us. Amen, 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 amen. One more time so you're really sure. Amen, amen. Going to happen 7 times. If the first time you're not sure, by the 7th time you'll be absolutely sure.
So I'm going to ask you to stand as we welcome in Ellie and Paul into their wedding.
Yedid nefesh, av harachaman, av harachaman. Meshoch avdecha, el retzonecha, el retzonecha.
Paul, Ellie, we're here to finally have arrived at the day that you have been planning for so long. And your excitement about today has been so infectious that I know that so many of us are so excited to be able to see the hours of thought that you have put into planning today, and to be able to welcome you and your families and your guests here to join you under the chuppah. So I'm going to ask the community to please be seated. But the two of you know that today was not just about creating a wedding ceremony. It's not about creating today. It's about creating the marriage that today symbolizes, that today represents. And I know that one of the keys of that marriage is that you place the other at the center of your orbit, at the center of the world that you create together. That you're not building high walls around your relationship, but rather making sure that you're always surrounded by the love of each other and the love of all of those who love you. And it's with that in mind that I'm going to ask you to take on that tradition of circling each other under the chuppah today. Blessed are the two of you who come in the name of God. We bless you from this house of God.
Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, berachnuchem mi beit Adonai.
May God, who is supreme above all, who is blessed above all, and who is great above all, bless these grooms.
Mi adir al hakol, mi baruch al hakol, mi gadol al hakol, hu yivarech hechatanim.
So our next ritual is one that we do twice under the chuppah. We're going to make kiddush. And we say this blessing twice to remember that this ceremony would have once been two ceremonies, perhaps with months or years in between, but have been brought together as one ceremony, now that we don't leave so much time between a betrothal and setting up home together. And you're going to be given a sip of wine each time. The first time I'm going to hand the cup of wine to each of your mums and ask them to give you a sip of wine, remembering how they nourished you both as little boys. And towards the end of the ceremony, Paul, your dad, Ellie, your stepdad, are going to give you a sip of wine and give a sip of wine to their new sons-in-law to be able to show not just how important you are to them, but how they welcome the other to the family as well.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
we use the cup of wine to say a bracha for the ceremony of standing under the chuppah, for the ritual of being here. And it's language that many people have rejected in this time, saying it's antiquated. The idea of chuppah and kiddushin is not relevant to them. But rather than saying this is not something relevant to us, instead you have taken on that language, said other people have tried to tell us that this is not a ritual for us, but we know that this is language which represents our relationship, our ability to hold fast to Jewish ritual and to make it our own.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, u'mekadesh amo Yisrael, al yedei chuppah v'kiddushin.
We move into the real reason that we're standing here. The promises, the commitment that you're making to one another. And we do it in 3 stages. Your I do moment, your moment to agree to what you're doing, your exchange of an object, and your vow, your commitment to one another, and then to your ketubah, your marriage certificate. So I'm going to ask the community to stand as they become your witnesses to this commitment that you're making to one another. Paul, I'm going to ask you first. To you, Paul Ginsberg, enter into this holy covenant of affection and truth, to commit yourself to Eli Kaufman, to be his partner in life, promising to love, honor, and cherish him in faithfulness.
I do.
And Eli, do you, Eli Kaufman, enter into this holy covenant of affection and truth, to commit yourself to Paul Ginsberg, to be his partner in life, promising to love, honor, and cherish him in faithfulness. So the next bit was meant to be the easy bit, the exchange of rings. But you asked me, was that necessary? We're not really jewellery-wearing people. Do we need to exchange rings? And I said, well, no. Actually, the ring is a much later addition to the ceremony. It's something of value. All you need to do is exchange something of value. Now, to most of us, that would be easy. Maybe a watch. I told you that IT equipment was not part of the allowed in the valuable object thing, and I assumed that that would be a really easy ask of you. And actually, the fact that you struggled to come up with something that actually had a financial value showed so much about what's truly important to you. That it's not about putting a price on something, a value, but actually to be able to understand what's important to you in terms of emotion, love, the ideas, the concepts behind things, and not a price tag that can be attached to them. So on an incredibly important trip to Israel, which defined a lot of being able to stand here today, you found these beautiful tiles that are going to be that public declaration, something that will hang in your home, and that you will be able to remember that these were the objects that you were able to exchange on this auspicious day. So, Dennis, am I right? You have the one for Paul. So we're going to actually give it to Ellie, so that Ellie can give it to Paul. And as you hand it to Paul, I'm going to ask you to say these words. Harei atah, mukudash li, b'chefet zeh, kedat Moshe, v'Yisrael. By this object, and in English, by this, you're married to me, in holiness, according to the law of Moses and Israel. So you can give that to Paul. And Jess, you have the one for Ellie, so you can give that to Paul, to give to Ellie. And again, I'm going to ask you to say these words, Paul, as you hand it to Ellie. Harei atah,
Arei ata
Mukudash li.
Mukudash li
B'chefetz ze.
Bechefet ze
Kedat Moshe.
Kedat Moshe
V'Yisrael.
V'Yisrael.
By this object,
By this object,
you're married to me
you're married to me
in holiness,
in holiness,
according to the law
according to the law
of Moses and Israel.
of Moses and Israel. Thank you. Is that cool?
Right on. Okay. You can hold on to them. You can hold on to them. Otherwise, it's sort of like taking the ring off immediately. Hold on to it for as long as you can. And the third and final promise that you make to each other is through the ketubah, the contract that you're going to sign at the end of the ceremony, which stands very beautifully for the community to see on the easel, and has been decorated by a friend in Israel. And as soon as I saw the illustrations, I thought that she had captured so much of the wonderful innocence of you, of your relationship, of how you've come to this marriage. And that it won't just be your signatures on the bottom of that ketubah, but all around those words are the very essence of what makes the two of you who you are. All the things that you enjoy, what you mean to each other, what you enjoy doing with each other, and to be able to have that surrounding this important commitment that you make to one another. Cantor Zoe is going to read the words of the ketubah for us.
ביום ראשון, בחודש כסלו, בשנת 5775 לבריאת העולם, שאינו מונים כאן בלונדון. החתן אליהו בן הנוך ושרה, והחתן מנדל בן משה וחנה, מתאחדים בברית הנישואין כדת משה וישראל. הם אמרו זה לזה, אכבד ואוקיר אותך בנאמנות וביושרה. הם גם הבטיחו זה לזה לשאוף במהלך חייהם המשותפים, להגיע לפתיחות שתאפשר להם לשתף את מחשבותיהם, רגשותיהם וחוויותיהם, להיות רגישים בכל עת לצורכי האחר ולהשיג הגשמה אינטלקטואלית, רגשית, גופנית ורוחנית, לעבוד יחד כדי לבנות בית שמחויב לגמילות חסדים ותיקון עולם. בית המלא ביראת כבוד ללימוד, אהבה ונדיבות. בית המונחה על ידי ערכי היהדות, כמו בבית כן בעשייה הקהילתית, והכל שריר וקיים. And for those of you for whom that might not have been your first language, on the first day of the week and the first day of Kislev, 5775, since the creation of the world as we reckon time here in London, the groom, Eli, son of Vadim and Sonia, and the groom, Paul, son of Malcolm and Linda, take each other for a husband, according to the law of Moses and Israel. They have said to each other, I shall cherish you and honor you in faithfulness and in integrity. They've also promised to each other to strive throughout their lives together to achieve an openness which will enable them to share their thoughts, their feelings, and their experiences, to be sensitive at all times to each other's needs, to attain mutual intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual fulfillment, to work together to create a home committed to deeds of loving kindness and towards the repair of the world, a home filled with reverence for learning, loving, and generosity, a home guided by values of Judaism, in their home as well as in their communal endeavors, and all this is valid and binding.
Please be seated. Can you believe it? It's happened. According to British law and Jewish law, you're standing here under the chuppah as married men. When I met you, your journeys had already been turbulent ones. I'm not sure which setting gets my sympathy more for the terror of coming out. The very English Orthodox Jewish home with parents who, like most of ours, had already plotted their life for you in terms of what they were going to quell over long before you were out of nappies. Or the Russian-Israeli home where hamatzav was more a general topic of conversation than one's sexuality. If anyone doubted the concept of a b'shet, of an intended one, the very fact that the two of you overcame the odds to admit to yourselves your true feelings and to go on and find each other is truly the definition of it. The fact that you found each other, that you complete each other, that you bring each other such happiness, and that here we all are, being given the chance to celebrate with you, is surely a glimpse of the divine helping to overcome the odds. Surely you knew that you'd found each other when Ellie suggested to Paul that your second date could be a klezmer keli and that you actually accepted. Definitely niche. Definitely found each other. Watching the two of you together has taught me a huge amount about relationships. Think back to that new members' evening. The two of you squished on the sofa in my lounge with more people than sensibly fit into the room. Everybody was going round, telling of their journeys that had brought them to join a shul, change shul, choose a reform shul, or choose a Jewish path. I realised as I looked at you both that you seemed somewhat uncomfortable. I knew you felt you were taking a risk in a room of unknown people, and I wanted to be able to reassure you in the moment, but I couldn't. But why do I think of that moment almost every time I see you? Because the way you dealt with that situation is the way I see you again and again. And it showed me how different the two of you are, how differently you always respond to situations, but how you manage to do it with such complete respect for the other and with being 100% supportive of the other. It's a lesson that many of us in relationships could learn from. Paul, you did what you do. Wondering whether you were going to sink or swim, you simply jumped in and did with such grace and good humour that you had everyone laughing, put everyone at ease, and relaxed into a room you knew was going to be a community of people who loved and respected you for exactly who you are. You've never stopped being totally at ease, putting other people at ease, and enjoying having found a space that feels like home. Ellie, you took a somewhat less gregarious option, as I now understand is your quiet and understated, yet equally warm and loving way. You sunk into the sofa, but you told your beautiful story, and then, and this is what I see every Friday night, as Paul beamed with pride and complete adoration, you let him put his arm around you. And it's that moment, that simple action, that so many of us would have taken for granted, that I see time and time again before you. That you allowed Paul that moment of his public display of affection. It's the greatest example of how the two of you can be 100% supportive in the other. Whether it's about public displays of affection which come so naturally to Paul and which Ellie allows himself to be guided into. Or Ellie's gentle touch, just quietening Paul and allowing others to speak. You're amazing together, complementing each other, bringing out the other side to each of you. You guided each other from the pretense of being roommates to the boys on page 9 of the Jewish Chronicle. You guided each other from a Judaism you thought didn't have a place for you into the heart of a community who loves you. You've guided each other to today, to open this new chapter in your lives together. And you continue to be each other's source of strength, of inspiration, to seize life with two hands, and to be exactly the men you want to be, without fear or reproach. May you always remember the love you feel for each other today, and the love that we all feel for you both. It's that love, those blessings for your future, which Cantor Zoe, Rachel, and the whole community will bestow on you as you stand under your chuppah today and hear your community reciting the Sheva Brachot.
So I'm just going to remind you that this is your opportunity to participate with a resounding Amen at the end of each bracha. The brachot might be slightly different than you are expecting, but we'll try to be as clear as possible as to when those Amens come in. And if the Hebrew feels like it's a little much, and you're wondering what's going on under the chuppah, I would invite you to be part of it in one other way. And that is to just think, as these brachot are happening, they are blessings that we wish to Ellie and Paul as they begin their married life together, for you also to think of your own blessings and just send them in their direction. And then we'll have blessings that surround them from every side that all of us will be able to say Amen to.
Amen, amen. וחדווה, אהבה ואהבה ושלום ורעות. מהן אדוני אלוהינו, ישמע בערי יהודה, ובחוצות ובחוצות ירושלים, ובחוצות ובחוצות ירושלים. כל ששון וכל שמחה, כל חתן וכל כלה, כל ששון וכל שמחה, כל חתן וכל חתן, כל ששון וכל שמחה, כל חתן וכל חתן, כל ששון וכל שמחה, כל חתן וכל חתן. כל מצהלות אהובים, מחופתם מחופתם, ואהובות ממשתה, נגינתם נגינתם. ברוך אתה אדוני משמח אתה עם החתם. אמן 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 אמן
Ellie, you're going to take on the traditional ritual of ending a chuppah by stamping on a glass. Many think of it as symbolizing the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And although our thoughts are not with destruction, they're definitely with those in Israel, watching on the stream, and the love that they're sending to you. However, the breaking of the glass also represents vulnerability and how fragile life is. On a personal level, I know you felt the extreme vulnerability of how your intent to marry was going to be received by your family. And you learnt that making yourselves feel vulnerable is often very important, as their love came back to you so fulsomely. Yet you also know that today cannot be completely insular for you. We have to look at the wider world and realise that for many men in your situation, they would never be able to publicly declare their love for each other. May this moment take us one step closer to stamping out all prejudice and hatred in the world. And may everyone have the love and respect of their families, the support of their community, and the legal backing of the society in which they live. We pause for a moment before you stamp on the glass to find that security in God's hand. blessing before that final act of ending the chuppah, a blessing that comes from your families.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך.
May God bless you and keep you.
יאיר אדוני פניו עליך ויחנוך.
May God's face enlighten you and be kind to you.
יישא אדוני פניו עליך וישים לך שלום.
May God's face be lifted up towards you and give you peace.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
for one last time so that our grooms can process out of the synagogue, and so that Paul and Ellie don't then get all het up with logistics. I'm going to then ask you that if you could make your way out of this hall as quickly as possible, it can be reset up for the next part. So there will be drinks and nibbles served out in the foyer if you would like to make your way out of this room into the other spaces to allow this room to be clear.
Oh.